Hi, are you taking the Life in the UK test? This video is the third in a series of videos by me showing you how to prepare for and pass the test. It contains all the knowledge and facts you need to know to pass the test first time. Please subscribe and click the notification bell if you'd like the rest of the series. And if you have any questions on the test, put them in the comments below and I will answer them. Okay, so in this video we're going to cover the Middle Ages, which is part of Chapter 4 of the Official Government Guide to the Life in the UK test. I'm going to deal with the points people struggle with, so stick around to the end of this video. I'm going to cover the example questions from the Life in the UK test on this topic, including some of the more tricky ones. Before we get to the example questions, let's go over together the relevant section of the official guide. This sets out what the UK government expects you to know about the Middle Ages for the test. The Middle Ages. War at home and abroad. The period after the Norman conquest, up till about 1485, is called the Middle Ages, or the medieval period. It was a time of almost constant war. The English kings fought with the Welsh, Scottish and Irish noblemen for control of their lands. In Wales, the English were able to establish their rule. In 1284, King Edward I of England introduced the Statute of Rhuddlan, which annexed Wales to the Crown of England. Huge castles, including Conway and Calveron, were built to maintain this power. By the middle of the 15th century, the last Welsh rebellions had been defeated. English laws and the English language were introduced. In Scotland, the English kings were less successful. In 1314, the Scottish, led by Robert the Bruce, defeated the English at the Battle of Bannockburn, and Scotland remained unconquered by the English. At the beginning of the Middle Ages, Ireland was an independent country. The English first went to Ireland as troops to help the Irish king and remained to build their own settlement. By 1200, the English ruled an area of Ireland known as the Pale around Dublin. Some of the important lords in other parts of Ireland accepted the authority of the English king. During the Middle Ages, the English kings also fought a number of wars abroad. Many knights took part in the Crusades, in which European Christians fought for control of the Holy Land. English kings also fought a long war with France called the 100 Years' War, even though it actually lasted 116 years. One of the most famous battles of the 100 Years' War was the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, where King Henry V's vastly outnumbered English army defeated the French. The English left France in the 1450s. The Black Death. The Normans used a system of land ownership known as feudalism. The king gave lands to his lords in return for help in war. Landowners had to send certain numbers of men to serve in the army. Some peasants had their own land, but most were serfs. They had a small area of their lord's land where they could now grow food. In return, they had to work for their lord and could not move away. The same system developed in southern Scotland. In the north of Scotland and Ireland, land was owned by members of the clans, who were prominent families. In 1348, a disease, probably a form of plague, came to Britain. This was known as the Black Death. 1/3 of the population of England died, and a similar proportion in Scotland and Wales. This was one of the worst disasters ever to strike Britain. Following the Black Death, the smaller population meant there was less need to grow cereal crops. There were labour shortages, and peasants began to demand higher wages. New social classes appeared, including owners of large areas of land, later called gentry, and people left the countryside to live in the towns. In the towns, growing wealth led to the development of a strong middle class. In Ireland, the Black Death killed many in the Pale, and for a time the area controlled by the English became smaller. Legal and political changes. In the Middle Ages, Parliament began to develop into the institution it is today. Its origins can be traced to the King's Council of Advisers, which included important noblemen and the leaders of the church. There were few formal limits to the king's power until 1215. In that year, King John was forced by his noblemen to agree to a number of demands. The result was a Charter of Rights called the Magna Carta, which means the Great Charter. The Magna Carta established the idea that even the king was subject to the law. It protected the rights of the nobility and restricted the king's power to collect taxes or to make or change laws. In future, the king would need to involve his noblemen in decisions. In England, parliaments were called for the king to consult his nobles, particularly when the king needed to raise money. The numbers attending Parliament increased, and two separate parts, known as houses, were established. The nobility, great landowners and bishops sat in the House of Lords. Knights, who were usually smaller landowners, and wealthy people from towns and cities were elected to sit in the House of Commons. Only a small part of the population was able to join in electing the members of the Commons. This was also a time of development in the legal system. The principle that judges are independent of the government began to be established. In England, judges developed common law by a process of precedence, that is, following previous decisions and tradition. In Scotland, the legal system developed slightly differently, and laws were codified, that is, written down. A distinct identity. The Middle Ages saw the development of a national culture and identity. After the Norman conquest, the king and his noblemen had spoken Norman French, and the peasants had continued to speak Anglo-Saxon. Gradually, these two languages combined to become one English language. Some words in modern English, for example, park and beauty, are based on Norman French words. Others, for example, apple, cow, and summer, are based on Anglo-Saxon words. In modern English, there are often two words with very similar meanings, one from the French and one from Anglo-Saxon. Demand, French, and ask, Anglo-Saxon, are examples. By 1400, in England, official documents were being written in English, and English had become the preferred language of the royal court and parliament. In the years leading up to 1400, Geoffrey Chaucer wrote a series of poems in English about a group of people going to Canterbury on a pilgrimage. The people decided to tell each other stories on the journey, and the poems described the travellers and some of the stories they told. The collection of poems is called the Canterbury Tales. It was one of the first books to be printed by William Caxton, the first person in England to print books using a printing press. Many of the stories are still popular. Some have been made into plays and television programmes. In Scotland, many people continued to speak Gaelic, and the Scots language also developed. A number of poets began to write in the Scots language. One example is John Barbour, who wrote The Bruce about the Battle of Bannockburn. The Middle Ages also saw a change in the type of buildings in Britain. Castles were built in many places in Britain and Ireland, partly for defence. Today, many are in ruins, although some, such as Windsor and Edinburgh, are still in use. Great cathedrals, for example Lincoln Cathedral, were also built, and many are still used for worship. Several of the cathedrals had windows of stained glass, telling stories about the Bible and Christian saints. The glass in York Minster is a famous example. During this period, England was an important trading nation. English wool became a very important export. People came to England from abroad to trade and also to work. Many had special skills, such as weavers from France, engineers from Germany, glass manufacturers from Italy, and canal builders from Holland. The War of the Roses. In 1455, a civil war was begun to decide who should be King of England. It was fought between the supporters of two families, the House of Lancaster and the House of York. This war was called the War of the Roses because the symbol of Lancaster was a red rose and the symbol of York was a white rose. The war ended with the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. King Richard III of the House of York was killed in the battle, and Henry Tudor, the leader of the House of Lancaster, became Henry VII. Henry then married King Richard's niece, Elizabeth of York, and united the two families. Henry was the first king of the House of Tudor. The symbol of the House of Tudor was a red rose with a white rose inside it, as a sign that the houses of York and Lancaster were now allies. Okay, so the key points we need to understand in relation to this section, and we'll come to the questions, example questions in a moment for the Life in the UK test. The key points are basically to understand the wars that took place in the Middle Ages, how Parliament began to develop, the way that land ownership worked and the effect of the Black Death. You also need to understand the development of English language and culture and the Wars of the Roses, and also the founding of the House of Tudor. So those are the key points that we've covered. I'll tell you what sort of questions are asked, and I've got 3 examples here. Let's kick off with these. Who was the author of The Bruce about the Battle of Bannockburn? Robert Bruce, John Barbour, William Shakespeare, Geoffrey Chaucer? And the answer is John Barbour. Is this statement true or false? The Canterbury Tales was printed by William Caxton. The answer is true. Is this statement true or false? England ruled Ireland at the beginning of the Middle Ages. The answer is false. Okay, so by all means, listen to or rewatch the content again if you didn't get the answers to those questions right. In the next video in this series, we'll be covering the next part of the Life in the UK test. This will be coming shortly. It's on the Tudors and Stuarts. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out the rest of the lessons in this series, in total it contains all the knowledge and facts you need to have to pass the test first time. If you have any questions on the Life in the UK test, just put them in the comments below and I'll answer them. If you'd like to subscribe and click the notification bell, you'll get my updates on the Life in the UK test and how to prepare, also my practice tests so that you can do a trial run. If you have any questions on securing indefinite leave to remain and naturalising as a British citizen, I have a free consultation service, so contact me on the details below. Good luck in the test, and I'll see you in the next video.